The Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders are a perfect example of pretty privilege and dopamine working side by side. Stay tuned as well for the dichotomy of pretty privilege. Stay tuned. All right, welcome to another episode of Claire Haire. We are on episode five. Okay. Thank you guys so much for your support. I will put in more effort today, and I know you guys are watching. So we're going to be talking about dopamine and basically the feel-good hormone that is responsible for eliciting positive emotions. And then we also are going to be talking about dichotomy of pretty privilege, is basically more on how thin will always be in. So I did do a little video for you guys. There it is right there. I was going to audition for the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders when I was in my 20s, but once I found out that it was $50, it was $500 now, but it's $50 at the time per game. So we're going to go into first things first. What is dopamine? Dopamine is basically it is a feel-good hormone that is released. I feel like dopamine is why social media is where it's at, okay? And dopamine is basically like, it just hits you. It's like think of something like a slot machine. So you see something, you immediately think like, you know, like that dopamine. Like for example, I get a dopamine hit when I see my package coming from Amazon. When I see my package coming from Amazon, I get an instant dopamine hit because I was like, oh my God, it's what I ordered. But basically I have on here too, dopamine, synthetic dopamine, basically drugs, as well. That also acts as a replacement for your natural dopamine. So think about it. Fun fact, when you see an attractive woman or attractive man, you instantly get hit with dopamine. That's why people always wonder why is the head cheerleader, she's such a meaty head, but she's hot, so people are still around her. Because when they see her visually, even though what's spewing out of her mouth is like that, but even though what's spewing out of her mouth is mean, like you still have like a positive, like it's basically almost like a negative reinforcement, you know? So it's basically like, yes, she's mean, but she's hot, so let's deal with it. Vice versa, why bad boys always get the girls. So I have on here specifically, and like I said, I'm gonna watch the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. I'm gonna watch this series, and I'll do my review on that as well. So I have on here the requirements for dopamine is basically someone who is very attractive, someone who's showing skin, and someone who is smiling a lot. So basically, the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, pretty much. Like you have to have, I have on here. You have to be 5 foot fine. At one point, I'll go into my review later on too. It's just that they only had models at one point, but models ran out of calories. Because tall women, like we have low iron, baby. I almost fell asleep in my last episode. I know y'all saw that. We have low iron. We have a big body to fuel it. But basically, because of the dopamine effect of the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, like they were initially brought in as basically models. Like we need somebody to increase attendance at a Cowboys game, which seems like impossible, but we need somebody to increase attendance. Basically I have on here too that they noticed that there's a schematics that there's an increase in focus, higher attendance, and then also to like basically like spread, I would say spread, but also like further push for the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders to elicit those dopamine hits. Now they're having meet and greets before, after, for Christmas. Like the main thing is the fact, like you want to keep people happy. You want to keep people happy. You want to keep people hyped up. You want to keep people wanting to come back. Because now you're Pavloving, basically you're conditioning them to think that, okay, Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, hot, pretty. Okay, these people who play on this team called Dallas Cowboys, they're good. Like you're at one point you're just like this. Okay, cheerleader, football player, and then eventually your brain conditions itself to like when they see the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, like okay, so I want to come back to the game, you know. And of course, people are going to be like, oh well, what if we don't like women? Like, it's just the fact that like everybody else around you likes that. Okay, so basically, if somebody else is happy, it's kind of like when someone's laughing. You have a tendency to like when someone's about to tell you a joke, if they're already laughing, you're kind of like loosening up to laugh as well. Because like, well, what is this person laughing about? You know, so definitely for sure in that same aspect, that's how I see it. That's how I see it at least, but. I really want to go more into detail on that, but we're going to move on to the dichotomy. But The Dallas Cowboy cheerleader review is coming very soon for you. So we're going to go into the dichotomy of pretty privilege. Let's just put it out there. You may not have pretty privilege, but you're skinny. Does that make any sense? So I don't want people to think that, okay, well, this person's skinny, but they're not good looking. Do they have good, pretty privilege? So I have the dichotomy down. Thanks for asking. Pretty privilege is 80% skinny, 15% appearance, and 5% charm. And the reason why I say that, and I wanted to make this be the bigger portion of the video, y'all are ruthless to people who are not skinny. And as someone who's been skinny her whole life, I've never had to experience it. That's why I don't want to speak on this too long, because I really can't speak about fat phobia. But I can tell you what I have witnessed. The level of disrespect y'all treat people who are not skinny like they are not a human being. Like that level, the reason, another thing too is just from my experience as well. Cause I remember, I was meeting with a friend and like they had like a company retreat or whatever. And I was dressed to the nines as per usual, period. So I was dressed to the nines and I met her boss and we did not even have a conversation. All I said was, "Hi, how are you doing?" So she comes over 10 minutes because she went to go get a drink. And he's like, "Oh my God, your friend's so lovely." I did nothing. I did nothing. All I did was transfer oxygen into carbon dioxide. I did nothing. Like I literally like, I remember I took that note in the back of my head. Sorry for yelling, but I took that note in the back of my head. I was just like, I could literally be a mean person and somebody is still going to be out there singing my praises. That is so toxic. Like, that's so toxic. I don't want the next generation thinking that this is okay, but something about the fact that I always took that note. He's like, "She's just so lovely." I've done nothing. I don't even know your name. Like, anyways, so I had on here fat phobia. So fat phobia is basically the fear of getting fat, and I don't like saying fat, the fear of increasing in weight past your ideal size, and as well as the fear of people who are plus size. And like I said, like, I wanted to make a video on skinny shaming, but I couldn't battle everybody in the comments because I know everybody's gonna battle me in the comments, because I don't want to talk about it, because skinny shaming is not on the same way as fat phobia, not even close. Like, I'm talking about people will lose jobs because they're not skinny type stuff. Okay. And so what I mean by like fat phobia, like, I really feel like when you see somebody who is plus size, they immediately don't have pretty privilege. Y'all don't even look at their face. Y'all don't even look at their face. You don't look at their style. Like, me personally, like, from a little girl, I always thought Queen Latifah, like, she has that cinnamon roll colored hair. Like, she was just always just peak, just, oh my God. Like, she was just always to be like she was just always just so beautiful. Like, oh my God. Like, they tried their hardest to make her not look good and set it off. I was like, all I saw was her bone structure. Haha, joke's on you. But I just remember growing up and people were like, "Oh, dang, I don't want to be like no Queen Latifah type woman." I was like, because you could never. And I feel like I really feel like there's just this level that pretty privilege is wrapped up in skinny, because there's plenty of stories I've heard where they already had a beautiful face and they lose weight and they're like, "Yeah, all the guys are coming at me now." I was like, the face card was always there. Like, I don't see why losing weight would change it. Like, it don't matter what you do to your body, like, your face still on there. I have on here too, this is based on cultural sense, so like I said, in the Black community, being thicker is seen as more womanly. I've been called, a man on several times, which I don't know what piece of me looks mannish, but I've been called a man on several times. I've been called very boy-like, because I don't have as many curves, or I've been called I need to eat, which is, I know if it's the reverse and I told somebody they need to stop eating, I would be canceled immediately. And I just feel like there is a lot of pretty privilege that's wrapped up in being skinny, but that's basically based on who deems it that, because some people may say, oh well dang, that's too skinny for me, or that's bones, or that's too much for, like, they won't consider they're attractive unless they're a certain size. Like I know some men in the Caribbean where if they said if it's not over 200, if it's not pushing 200, she's not pushing, then I don't know, baby. I don't know. I wouldn't know. But basically they have like these requirements based on that cultural aspect. So that's why I said, like, I feel like the dichotomy of pretty privilege is very, very important for people to understand. And then I have my summary basically just to bring back the psychological dopamine. I know I rushed through that a little bit. It's just that I didn't want to get too deep because I could talk about this all day. I didn't want to get too deep on the dopamine because we're going to talk about that for our review for DCC, the series that's on Netflix. And basically, there's just this level, I would say there's just this level psychologically that, like, there's a reason why you ever notice the mean girl be having the finest dude? Like, the meanest girl or the bad boy be having the good girls is because of the fact that they're face card. Like, no offense, but a lot of these men who are notorious cheaters, like, what's his name? Sensational. Davidius, like, with him, like, I personally, I don't think he's attractive, but I do feel like he's tall and he clicks off the skinny privilege. He kicks off the dichotomy of pretty privilege. He's skinny. He's skinny. He has white teeth, good hair, good skin. And I feel like that's enough for people to be like, okay, we're gonna deal with the negative aspects that come with you, just because we get to look at you, and I feel like a lot of people have that mindset. I feel like it's also behind the reason why there's so many people who are married to people who they don't like, because they're just like, okay, the looks are starting to fade and you're still a meanie head, so I feel like there's that aspect as well, that a lot of people, tend to get married, tend to have a kid with somebody because they fine, and that fine don't pay the bills. Let me call T-Mobile. T-Mobile, I'm backed up on my phone. I'll have you know, I'm fine. I just want to let you know that. What? You're cutting it off? Okay. Like, you think that's gonna work? Like, it doesn't work. Like, you can't pay pretty privilege with your bills legally. So I have on here too, pretty privilege being skinny. I feel like and I'll go into the psychology of, that's on the next episode. I'll go into the psychology of how a pretty person thinks, but there is a fear in gaining weight because you're so used to having pretty privilege that it's just like, okay, once I gain weight, like, you have people who are pregnant who don't want to gain weight which I'm just like, that baby gonna take them, the baby gonna take them nutrients. I'm agreed. The baby's gonna take the nutrients regardless. That's on you. If you don't want to eat, like, I just want to let y'all know, like, your body is built to feed that parasite, the baby. So if you don't want to eat, that's on you. The baby gonna get their baby gonna get what they need to get anyways. But basically, like, there's people who are like, they're afraid to gain weight, or they feel pressure to lose the weight as soon as they give the birth. Like, there's just a lot. Like I said, there's a lot of different aspects that people need to put into play when they think about. I don't know how to describe it. Like, when they think about, like, what is pretty privilege, and is this title worth holding over your health? That's how a lot of eating disorders start as well. And then I have on here, my final point is the fact that, like, with pretty privilege, like, it's always based on cultural, and like I said in my last episode, with like who's the most attractive, or like the top 100 person who's attractive, like, you don't really know, you don't really know who finds you attractive. But like I said, usually pretty privilege is it's a general consensus that if you are skinny, thin is in. If you are skinny, you are considered attractive, no matter how you look like, and no matter your age, as long as you're skinny. Like, there's been so many diet pills, Ozempic, there's been so many pills, so many like things, Slim Fast, Atkins diet, keto diet, like all these different forms of trying to get you to be skinny. And I feel like it's very important to realize that, like, do you really want this pretty privileged title over your health? Do you really want this pretty privileged title over your, like, eat that donut tonight, eat that apple pie, okay? Like, do you really want to have this title over your happiness? So don't forget to subscribe, share. It's Claire.